And for me, growing companies has always been about a couple of ideas, right? If you really look at what we do when we grow a company, it's a couple of ideas, right? So it's a little bit of an idea that we take, we expand, and then we organize. And I think we'll talk a little bit about what all that means a little bit later on in this, but that's part of why I love growing companies. So that's one of them. I have a podcast, a TV show. We've got a waffle business in Europe. We've got real estate functions all around the country.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Anthony Amunategui. He's a serial entrepreneur and excited to have him on the show today. Anthony, welcome.
Kelsey, thank you for having me on your show. I love your show. You know, you guys have some of the best guests and I'm addicted to it. So thanks for having me on. I'm honored to be here.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. So Anthony, why don't you start? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
You know, Kelsey, I have been a serial entrepreneur my whole life. You know, starting off early on, you know, I love growing businesses. I love being creative. You know, for the last 26 years, the biggest company I've really grown is, I still own it today. It's called CDO Group. We are a nationwide construction company. We build for brands like McDonald's and Chipotle's and for Panda Express. And we build for a lot of really big brands. We do a lot of rollout construction. We build probably more McDonald's than anybody in the world at this time. And we do, we have a lot of fun working with those brands and bring them together. A couple of years ago, my wife became the president of that company. She really owns the company and runs the company, and she does a way better job than I ever did. And for me, growing companies has always been about a couple of ideas, right? If you really look at what we do when we grow a company, it's a couple of ideas, right? So it's a little bit of an idea that we take, we expand, and then we organize. And I think we'll talk a little bit about what all that means a little bit later on in this, but that's part of why I love growing companies. So that's one of them. I have a podcast, a TV show. We've got a waffle business in Europe. We've got real estate functions all around the country. And it's fun growing companies.
Yeah. So genuinely a true entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. That's fantastic. So, you know, you mentioned CDO Group. Why don't we start there? Why don't you tell me a little bit more, about CDO Group?
Sure. CDO Group is a group of two things we really do. General contractor, right? So we really go out and we build and hire. We hire subcontractors and build projects all around the country. And if you really look at what construction is, right, at the core, it really does, every project is like its own little company, right? If you really look at why I love senior construction, I got it from construction. My whole career I've been in construction. I've really looked at it. And when I look at the business of construction, it's kind of run haphazardly. Most construction people show up at the job site and it's kind of like a Wild Wild West movie, right? They show up and they're like shooting from the hip all day long, not very well managed, not very well organized. And people, let's say that, let's just say that for a second, my finger is the lifespan of a building, right? Let's say it's 150 years, right? Let's say the building's gonna be 150 years old and then it will tear it down. But for 150 years, people will have that building, right? And construction might be the time that touches my finger, right? That just that little piece right there. So people had to interact with construction for such a little bit of time. For most of time, people would put up with the nonsense that goes on in construction, right? But today we're realizing that it's just, one, it's expensive. Nonsense in today's world is expensive. Delays, cost impacts, all that stuff that goes on there. It's really, really expensive, and it's an environmental nightmare, right? If you look at the longer construction goes on, the more waste that we have, the more impact we have to environment, more impact we have to the neighborhood and sound and all the stuff that comes along with that. And today people aren't willing to put up with it like they used to. So it really calls for us to get way more organized. And in this now time where we're heading in the world with construction, that's our whole game. Our whole game is about organizing, right? Really taking a whole other level to construction that wasn't there for a long time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And, when you're talking about that small touch point of when companies are interacting, with the construction, like you said, but it really affects the entire life of, the company, of the building. It's something that, while it's a short interface, it lasts the tell of the time of the tail, however the saying goes.
That's right. It does. It really impacts the building forever, the community forever, the time forever. I mean, it impacts all of us. I mean, if you look at construction, let's take a second and really look at why construction's a nightmare, right? Just imagine that you, me, and let's say there's 5 people. We're gonna bid on a project. Or here, you and I have the best idea. Let's say we're gonna build Anthony and Kelsey's world's famous sub shop, right? You make the world's best bread. The world's best bread. You have this bakery recipe from your great grandmother. You're carried along for history. You've got this bread that's going to change people's lives. The bread you make is just about that. It's savory. It's amazing. And I have figured out the perfect sub recipes. I got the meats, the cold cuts. I know how to slice them so perfect, so thin. There's only one side to them. They make your mouth water. It's one of those. I got the oils and the things to put on top to make the best of that sandwich. So your bread and our meats, we've got this great, we've got this business we're going to put together. And we say, all right, we're going to put together a sub shop, right? Let's say we decide, you and I come up, I got $200,000, you have $200,000. We're going to spend $400,000 building a sub shop, right? Let's look at what we think it's going to take to build a sub shop. And we have to hire an architect. We got to get a permit, right? So you and I get together, we sit down, we do a perfect layout. We say, well, we want to have our kitchen here, we want to have our bathrooms here, here's where our counter's going to be, here's where Anthony's going to slice this, and here's where I'm going to bake my bread. And we're going to build a perfect little layout for us to do business. And then we hire an architect, right? And now we got to go to an architect and we got $400,000. We're going to build a sub shop. Hey, could you cut us a break? Right? You got Uncle Joe, who's an architect. And the Uncle Joe says, yeah, I'll give you, normally they're $30,000 for a set of plans, but for you, because you're my cousin, my niece, I'm gonna do this for you for, I don't know, $8,000 or $10,000, right? And I'll get you a permit. I'll help you do that. So now he's got to cut back his time a little. So maybe my drawings get a little bit short on design, right? They spent a little bit less time they really needed to. Now we submit those for permit. Now, while those are good for permit, we go out to bid. And you know a couple of guys, and I know a couple of guys, and we get 5 people to go bid on a project. And we get back, one guy says, I can do it for $100. The other guy comes back and says, I can do it for $90. Another one comes back and says, I can do it for $80. Another one comes back and says, I can, for here. So at the end, we take the low bidder. Now somewhere, all the rest of the people spent their time. Now think about this, right? For our little sub shop, there might be 20 subs per contractor. Right? So for us, when we go to bid, we have 3 per line item, right? So we have 3 electricians, 3 plumbers, because we want to win the bid, right? So when we go to bid, and we're going to bid for Anthony and Kelsey sub shop, we're going to put together 3 lines. So imagine that's 5 groups of people with 60 subs apiece. That's 300 subcontractors working on this $400,000 project, and none of them have won the job yet. Now imagine it costs each one of them $1,000 to bid the job. I just imagine. So now we have $300,000 we've taken out of the construction world, and no one's won a project. Now we decide to go with the low bidder, and we give the low bidder the job, and he wins it. And now all the rest of the people lose, right? So the $60,000 per team got sucked out of the business, and only one group won it. But they had to win. They take a low bid, and they've already spent $60,000 of their team to get the job. And now they go to do the project, and they're never quite as efficient, right? Because they have the low cost providers. Their carpenters don't put the walls up when they're supposed to. The electricians don't finish the electrical when they're supposed to. The plumbers don't do the plumbing when they're supposed to. Now we've got leaks. We've got behind. Oh, but remember, we also hired a cheap architect, and now we have design conflicts. Things that don't line up, things that don't meet code. Inspectors walk in and change things. So all those places we've already spent money, lost money. That whole environment in the construction world is caused chaos. And that's why it runs so inefficiently. So today we're really working on a way different way of looking at the whole world. And that's what really sets CDO apart. It's the relationships we have with the subcontractors, right? It's the relationships we have with the owners. And we go, look, there's a price that's the right price. Very shortly, construction will be all designed by artificial intelligence. You can see it today in the world. Architectural reforms are running very quickly, and they'll be using architectural designs. And between that and the subcontractor world, subcontractors will be hired a lot like Uber, right? Where plumbers will get hired, like 5-star plumbers will show up. And today, that's what we're working at CDO Group. We're really working on where the future of the business is going. And that's really been our driving force. It's really, technology has been the secret to driving our success with it.
So you raised a lot of really good points kind of talking in there. One, I caught the reference to an Uber, like AI for plumbers. I thought that was, an interesting, I like that concept. But also too, talking, I've got a question for you, and I want you to talk a little bit more on that about, one, we'll touch on AI in a minute, but also going back to, the ways that CDO Group is really able to fight that chaos, like really implementing, it sounds like, the organizational aspects in order to keep the project aligned and in a timely manner, I think is also an important note that you said as well. So talk to me a little bit more about that.
So what's really important, so one of the things we really believe in is, essentially what happens when we have bad information up front, we push all decision logic out to the field, right? So we get out there, and that's where change orders and designs and impact, and then we end up in the field, and we're trying to decide how to fix these things. What we do in CDO Group is we move all that to the beginning of the project, and we spend a lot of time. Like, for example, our estimators, before it even goes to subcontractors, we do takeoffs. Right, so we'll say every screw, every board, every sheet of plywood, every pipe, every electrical outlet, we're giving the subcontractor those takeoffs. Now, why do you do that? One, it saves them a lot of time, and they can just go through and just verify. Right, they go, "Hey, Anthony, you missed one," or "Anthony, I think you did too many," and it gives them a point of reference to think of. Because remember, our best subcontractors are where? They're working, right? They go to work all day, and they have to come home at night and have to do estimates. Right, our greatest subcontractors are the ones who are working in the field, and we have these amazing relationships with great subcontractors, and our whole goal is to help them help us. Now, if we do that if we really move that to the beginning part of the project, and we do the takeoff with them or for them, and then that lends itself into really well-defined scopes of work, which end up in the contraction. Because the next level that really gets messed up in construction is we get awarded the project. Now, they say, "We want you to start next Tuesday," and it's, Thursday. We're like, "Oh, okay, great." And we get started on Tuesday, and we don't have anybody contracted up yet. Like, we can't find them. It costs us time, and all those impacts. So now we lose a week, right? Say the guy wants to build this whole thing in 10 weeks. Our week one, we're still trying to find the person. They're on vacation. Something happens. They're on their job site. You can't meet them. And by the time you go back and forth on a contract, you may lose a week or 2 weeks. And now you started behind, but nobody cares about that because you're trying to serve your customer. You're like, "Oh, we'll make it up." The truth is, time takes time. The business is rough. You can't go into construction expecting to rush the job, because the only thing that happens is quality goes down, right? Time takes time. So now what we got to do is we rush it. Now, our whole thing is, if we put those scopes together up front, they see our contract up front. They've already negotiated through that. So as soon as we get awarded that, it's a matter of turning a light switch on. The scope's already been defined. Right, it's in the contract, really, really well defined in there. They know exactly what they've bid on. They see exactly what the hours are. We've attached a schedule to their bidding platform. So when they bid the project, all we're saying to you is, "Hey, that we need manpower for," the electrician would be a perfect example. "Mr. Electrician, here's what we need for material. Your underground plumbing, your underground electrical is going to happen here. We're going to do this on Tuesday to Thursday. You're going to do all your underground plumbing. You're going to need 3 guys to do that here. And then we're going to pour the slab, we're going to put the walls up, and you're going to bring people back in to do your rough-ins. That's going to take 5 electricians, 5 days, right? So then you can look on the schedule, and you can see 5 electricians for 5 days. That's 25 man hours, or 25 man days, right? Now they can put that number together for them, right? And we've given them material. Now all we have to do is match our schedule, and now they can start to look at their time, right? And then we go, "Look, we're going to have a rough inspection done by this date. All right, we need to have all the stuff inside the walls done by here. Now, as soon as you get that inspection, we're going to put the drywall up, and we're going to have you guys come back at finishes, and we're going to have you pull all your wires, do all your trim out, and we're going to need 5 more guys for 10 more days." Now that's 50 man days, right? So as we put this together and we help them define that, we're moving all that decision logic to the beginning of the project. We're already setting up those relationships and standards for them, which ultimately get moved into our schedule. Right, and this has our superintendents have a clear picture of what we want to get done on a weekly basis, because we know that we have an underground slab, underground inspection here. We're pouring our slab here. We're doing our in-wall here. We're doing our in-wall inspection here. We're putting drywall up here, and that becomes a much easier vision. Right, remember, all we're doing in the construction world, like all we're doing in any business, all we're ever doing in business is we're painting a picture for people to see, a path for them to go down. Now, if you're running a bakery, or if you're running a marketing department, or if you're running a team, all we're really doing as leaders are painting a picture for our teams to follow, a path, a vision, a goal for them to get to. And the more we can define that, the better we have an opportunity for developing.
And I imagine, too, having all of that work done up front, you're building a lot of trust, within the relationship for the client and you, knowing that, one, you know what you're doing, two, you're setting very clear expectations, and three, like you said, you're facilitating the conversations up front. So when something does, happen, you've already got the rapport, you're able to have that conversation and adjust in a timely manner.
It's exactly right. It's clear, it's clean. You can see the hours, and when we have a change order that pops up, and they do, right? They do, and they're going to come up. And as we start to move into smarter and smarter design, right? As we start to work on, the problem we have when we start looking at architectural design is that there's, even the best human beings. Look, I've been doing this my whole career, and really, I love the business. I love it, and I'm great at it, and my teams are great at it. But even the best of us, there's only a certain amount of levels you can think through, right? Let's just imagine you're an architect, and you got to think through the design of the building, the footprint of the building, the structural conditions of the building, the electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC, all the mechanical drawings. Then you get the finishes and design. And even at your best, somewhere you're going to miss something. And every one of those misses costs us time and impact to the environment and money, right? All of those things impact us. And today, right, we're looking at where we're heading. It's going to be a huge amount of growth, right? We're seeing it today, housing shortages, and it's getting more and more complex out there. We've got to be able to build smarter, using smarter materials that last longer and are easy to install. And across the world, we're doing that. So all those things impact us, and our goal is to really paint that vision and move them down that path.
Yeah. And, I mentioned it before, kind of wanting to circle back to it. I know you talk about this on your podcast, the Future Factory podcast, but you talk a good bit about, the transformative potential of AI and becoming, smarter and adapting to the changing, atmosphere to make construction, still at the forefront of technology. Talk to me a little bit about the impact that you see AI having in the construction industry.
Number one, AI is going to impact all of us in every industry. There is not an industry that this won't impact us on. Now, the first thing we all have to remember is we're going to be where the pendulum's going to swing, and it's going to mess up some things as well, right? So as we start out, if you look at the way construction and AI, the impact on construction, it's going to be an amazing impact. Number one, if you were just imagine this, just imagine that as we're working on, from the second that Anthony, the two of us, right? Anthony and Kelsey go through and decide we want to build a bakery. We're going to build our sub shop. In the second that we decide that we want to do this, right? And we can go to AI and say, AI, we want to build this. Show us the best place, how much it's going to cost, and how to do this. Imagine in the same moment, right? It will be able to take an idea or a McDonald's or a Panda or a brand, and for everyone they want to build, they will be able to go out to the marketplace. Imagine being able to find real estate in a way smarter way than they ever have before. When I was a kid, I did real estate, right? And I would sit out there and I would, with one hand, I'd click on the cars going by, and the other hand, I'd click all the people walking by, and we'd get a count, and we'd kind of figure out, hey, we drive up the street, we see the churches and the hospitals and the schools, and we look at the office buildings, we look at how many households are in the back and how much income they make. And let's say that maybe back then we had, 25 parameters that we could measure success of a potential site for an Einstein Bagels or a Boston Market or a Panera Bread, right? We could look at those parameters, and those will be the design of it. Imagine what AI is going to be able to do. Imagine that it's going to do 1,000x that. Imagine it being able to look at social media, every game schedule, every soccer team, every volleyball team, every baseball team. When churches go on and when churches go off, it'll be able to watch traffic patterns, cell signals, the amount of data that it'll be able to sift through to understand the best positioning for every marketplace. I mean, how much competition's in the market already? Do I need another sub? Do Anthony and do they need to put a sub shop there? Well, look, there's already 6 in that marketplace, but maybe they put it over here. It's an underserved market. There's a lot of people that need that. Oh, by the way, those are people, and by the way, that market, they're more college kids. They stay up late. They don't need the early morning. Kelsey and Anthony don't open before 11 o'clock. They don't need it. Those kids don't need to wake up. They're going to school, right? But they want you to stay open until midnight, right? Then they'll be able to show you when to open, right? How to open, what the best location for it is. In the moment you decide to open it, it'll be also to be able to take your design and give you the best layout, the best impact, how the deliveries will enter your space, where you store all your equipment, all your material, all your food, all your cold cuts, all your bread, what bakery shelves to have, how much electrical needs it's going to have. In the moment you decide to make a bagel shop, it'll be able to do a design, look for real estate, give you pricing, even be able to tell you how much money and when you're going to spend. Now maybe as an owner, there might be a couple of sliders you could do. You might decide, hey, if we want to open, we want to open before Christmas. And that might cost you something because it might be just like with Uber, there's some surge pricing. Everybody wants to open before Christmas. They want to get the Christmas rush. So maybe if you do before Christmas, it's going to cost you, I don't know, 7% more. Oh, hey, Anthony and Kelsey, we also want to be green, right? We want to have everything environmentally green. So maybe that slider slides in. We want everything locally bought and everything locally grown and everything locally supplied. So there's a slider there. The more green that we get, there's some changes in numbers there, right? Imagine that as AI starts to develop, it'll be able to look at supply chain for every material that we're doing, right? It'll be able to the perfect 2x4, the perfect bakery oven for you, the perfect slicer for me, right? Imagine the signs that it'll put up, how it's going to the name of our place, what's going to impact that marketplace based on all the technology it has for a place. So as we look at that, there's such a variety, such a mass, beautiful. I mean, if that to me is beautiful, right? To be able to look at how to impact us in a way more beautiful way than we ever have before, right? What hours, what products, where it also helps us be more successful, right? And to me, that seems like a pretty good idea with AI. That same impact happens with construction, right? In the whole construction field. And you can really see that from the time that we look at real estate. And then even afterwards, right? Even after we get open, watching the building, how it performs, being able to anticipate when things are going to break down, be able to look at, expect what your traffic levels are going to be for the day based on thousands and thousands of bits of data. That sometimes the problem with that will be we may not understand how that's happening. The complexity by which it will be able to decide how things are going to happen may blow our minds. But the problem we have as human beings, we don't understand something. What do you do when you don't understand something?
Google.
Google, right? Right. But also, when I don't understand something, when I don't know something, I don't understand how something works, I pull from something from my past, right? I pull an idea from my past and I put it in there and I put it as a placeholder until I figure out what's going on. Now, sometimes my past may not have always been so good, right? So I don't know how AI is going to work. So where I go back to, I saw Terminator. Remember the finger at the end of the movie walking across the street, right? I don't know how it's going to work. So I might scare myself and put that imprint in my brain. I don't think about all the beautiful things that AI may do, the lives that it may save, all the stuff that may happen there. I don't even imagine some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really, a funny reference, but I think people are often scared of things that they don't know. And, when people don't know how to necessarily use technology, they, just associate it with a negative thing or just saying like, it's going to take over the world. It's going to, eat everybody or whatnot. So, I think that talking to people and encouraging people to leverage AI, in different industries, in your industry, I think that's a great, move that not only CDO is doing, but also, everybody else in the industry as well.
Well, let me ask you a question. I got a fun one for you. I'll try it on, right?
Yeah.
So here, let me ask you this. So if I were to say to you, Kelsey, if I were to say to you, AI has developed a perfect, this little thing right here, this little thing, we're going to insert this in your body, right? We're going to put this in your body. You won't feel it. We won't even know it's there. And we put this into hundreds of thousands of test people. We've done it. We've tested. It's perfect. And it's going to monitor, Kelsey, it's going to monitor all of your body functions, right? It'll make sure that you never have sugar levels or sleep enough, or it's going to make sure you never get sick. You'll never get cancer. You'll never get viruses. It'll watch and monitor like a live-in doctor, like a doctor that lives in you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's $700,000. Kelsey, would you put one in your body?
Maybe Burt's Bees. No, I'm just kidding. Yes.
Right. All right. So yes. Right now, if I said to you for $1.3 million, Kelsey, for $1.3 million, it's also going to teach you 3 languages. You can have any 3 languages you want anytime you want.
I'd pay $3 million for it.
All right, guys. So now you think about it. Now I say to you, we're going to go $3 million. Now we're going to go $3 million for $3 million. And by the way, you don't have to pay me all at once. You make payments.
Okay, good.
$3 million. It'll have all the knowledge of the internet. It'll have every bit of data that ever existed digitally and you'll have access to that right now. Kelsey, at any given time, you'll never get sick. You'll know oh, by the way, it knows every language now. Now you know every language. For $3 million, you get the package that has never get sick, never know everything that's on the internet, know every language that's out there. You can speak to anybody in the world, within their language, in their dialect. You'll know their jokes. You'll know everything. You'll have instant access to it, right? And you'll have all the data on the internet. You'll walk in, you'll know all social media. You'll walk into a party, you'll know Joe's name, when his birthday is, the last trip that he went on. You know everything about everybody that you talk to. $3 million. Do you do it? Yeah. I think it's amazing, right? At Future Factor, we talk about that all the time. You know, like where could this thing go?
Yeah.
Right. And some people are like, no way. There's no way I'll ever do it. I get people on Future Factor. They're like, never, ever going to talk about, no way. And I'm like, what happens if I did that to all my kids and you don't do it to your kids?
Mm-hmm.
Your kids now have to compete with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What happens to the people who have it and the people who don't have it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we can see how that separation of human beings gets really kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are the things we start to really look at as we start to develop. There's lots of ideas on this. And I'd love your audience to put comments down below when they get to watching this. I'd love for them to comment and interact and even argue why they shouldn't do it and why they shouldn't do it. I'd love to see a little bit more about that as a discussion in the comments.
Yeah. And I was thinking to myself, you know, for the point of the point, I was like, yeah, you know, I'd do it. But then I got thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't know if I want to have access to all that information.
Well, I mean, right.
It's scary. You know, so one thing, kind of pivoting a little bit, Anthony, you know, that you talk a lot about on your podcast as well, is a lot about, you know, personal and professional growth as well. Talk to me a little bit about how, you know, I know you mentioned your wife is now the president of CDO. Talk to me a little bit about how you've been able to foster that, not only within yourself, but also your employees too.
You know, I did the whole growth as a leader. You know, I often talk a lot about the journey of a leader. Right. For me, I'll use myself as an example, right? As I gone through and looked at what it means to be a leader, right? To go out there and stand in front of human beings and support them and help them grow and really be the person that really creates ideas and solutions where one didn't exist, right? Taking these ideas and growing them and taking teams and growing them, right? What does it take to stand up there, right? And for me, one of my number one core beliefs, if you want to be a leader, you have to do more work on yourself than you do the businesses that you grow. Mm-hmm. Do not stand in front of human beings without doing your own work. Now, what do I mean by that, right? What do I mean by that, right? So for me, I've got this challenger inside of me, right? I've got this thing I call my ego. Well, everybody calls their ego, right? And my ego, and for me, I call him Fred. Fred's an ass. Fred, in my head, right? He tells me that the way I'm living is just fine. He tells me that what I'm doing is just fine. He's a justifier. He's a liar. He tells me that this is just okay. I can get away with that. These behaviors are normal. They're not really helping me grow. Mm-hmm. I can't often do that alone. To grow, I need outside help. I need to find trusted advisors that I can circle the wagons around me, and they can hold me in their hand, and they can challenge me in a loving way. Now, I'm not looking for brutal honesty, right? I mean, brutal honesty is kind of annoying. Right? That's what your aunt does when she's mad at you at dinner or she's jealous, right? They get the brutal honesty. Remember Chelsea was a brat little kid, right? No, they bring that story you don't want anybody to know in front of everybody that you don't want them to know at the dinner table. Yeah, no, that's brutal. That's gross. What I'm looking for are people who have candor. People can look at me and go, hey, you know, maybe when you talk like that, you know, it's not helping you. Maybe when some of the language you use in a meeting, that's not helping you. Or maybe you talk too much about this, or maybe you don't listen enough, or maybe it might be helpful if you went and took care of yourself, right? What are the things that I have to do to really be present, right? If I'm going to be a great leader, what do I need to do to show up at the office free of all the distractions of the drama that I carry in my life, right? If I show up there now, a lot of that has to do with an inventory, right? Taking an inventory of our life, right? Sitting down with somebody you trust and going back through your life with vigor, with real intelligence and real commitment to being honorable, right? Really looking at it and being, looking at your life with real intention and doing a deep dive in there and having that person know everything about you and have them look at it and go, all right, let's start looking at some of the patterns and behaviors that you're doing. One, you say you're going to do something, but you don't do it. Two, you're afraid of this. Here's where you're afraid. Here's where you stand in your fear. Here's where you stand in, you don't trust. Right? What are some of those character defects that are holding me back? Right? And every one of us have got them. I don't know about you, but they never go away. Right? The real joy is that you practice growth. It's never something you have. Right? And have grace for each other. Right? Have grace for the other fellow beings on this planet. They're all trying to grow with you, right? And some are at a different level than you are, but have grace for each other. When I look at it, someone across the table and they're working hard at growing a business or a podcast or another, I have grace for them, right? I look at them and go, man, they're trying like I am. I may not do things perfectly, but I'm trying, and for that, there's a gift. And then I got to look at it and go, all right, where do I have some places I have some messes? What are some of the behaviors I want to give up? Right. So one of the ones I have, and for me, I put them on 3.5 by 11 cards. Let's see. I bet you I got one in my pocket. This is going to be kind of a good test right here. I think I got one. Let's see. Cause I know I've been working on, let's see what I got in my pocket right now here. Let's see here. There's not one in there, but normally there's one here. Normally it'd be something like, it might be stop lying. It might be stop cursing. It might be spend less money. It might be step through your fear. It might be, how about the other one I had the other day was, what if the opposite of my story could be true? Right? What if the story that I'm telling you about somebody, what if the opposite of that could be true? Right? So I'll write these little things on a card, and I'll keep them with me, and they remind me to practice these principles. Right? How do I practice having open, honest communication? How can I practice something that the opposite of what I'm thinking could be true? How can I practice those things? Now, for that takes some work. And now I have some people I have to go clear some messes up with, right? Because somewhere along the way I've pissed some people off. I need to go back and, clean that mess up, right? So who are the people in business and in life and my family where I get that feeling? For me, one of the feelings I want to get rid of is that, oh, there she is. Oh, that person's down the street. Oh, I want to hide from them, right? I want to get rid of those in life because those take up CPU capacity in my brain, right? Those little spots where I can't walk in a room and be free, right? That shame and guilt that I carry. Shame and guilt's the biggest corrosive behavior for a leader that's out there. I've got to learn to let go of that shame, guilt. If it's with my family, it's my parents, and a lot of us have it around their parents or other siblings. I mean, have it with people we worked with, or spouses or relationships. How do I clear that up so that I can walk into a room and I'm not carrying that? One of the best books I ever read was the Book of Love, Book of Joy, by Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama. And the Desmond Tutu talks about the Dalai Lama as being able to walk in a room and go from person to person and be with each person they're with. Literally, he'd go down a line and he'd be with that person, let go of that person, be with the next person. And the secret to that really was about not carrying a bunch of crap with him, right? As you walk through life, if I can let go of the crap that I've been carrying, this bag, for me, I imagine Fred. He carries this big Santa bag, right? This big giant Santa bag. And inside that Santa bag, there's shame and guilt and fear. And as I open that bag up and I look at it, I go, all right, I don't need to carry this. I don't need that one anymore. Let's go work on that, right? I just let go of fear. Right? Well, how that goes, because fear comes and goes. I'll go work on something, then I'll scare the crap out of myself. Then I'll go work on something, then I'll scare the crap out of myself. And then my friend in my head's like, stop, go back to bed. You don't need to go to the gym. No, stop. You said, well, the other day I did 90 workouts in 90 days. And Fred's like, no, you did 90 workouts a night. Are you crazy? Get back in bed. Your waist's nice and warm. Snuggle. You don't need to do 90 work. But I did 90 workouts in 90 days, and it felt amazing, right? Or how I eat or the diet. So as a leader, the work that I do on myself has me show up in the office place free, right? And what I know about human beings we're the most creative being on this planet. Right? When I connect to that spiritual part of me, I connect it to the universe. And my real belief is that we all have this amazing ability, right? Whatever you call it godlike, or whatever that is for you, right? But when we let go of the shame, guilt, and fear, I can stand in that space connected to all that is out there. And then really my job as a leader is to look at the billions and billions and billions and billions of ideas that are out there and bring a solution to the game. So that's a little bit about what the work is when I talk about the work.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I heard, just kind of to summarize what you said, I heard a few things in there that stuck out to me. One, about talking about stepping to your fear. Two, being intentional. I think you said that without kind of, using that word, but writing down on the index cards what you're working on, being intentional, making a conscious effort to shift that mindset of what you're doing, to put in the work. I heard that. I heard, talking about challenging yourself to say, well, what if it's the opposite that's true? I think those are, several good things that our listeners, I hope that they walk away with, kind of hearing you talk about that in your own growth, to challenging yourself to not only be, a better person, better husband, but a better leader as well.
Awesome. That's all great work. By the way, none of that was invented by me. I just read a lot of books.
Yeah.
And for me, reading books is a great experience for a leader to take on. And so I think that's a good spot to get all that information from.
Yeah. Well, Anthony, I think this has been a great conversation. Before we wrap up, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with, either about the Future Factory podcast, CDO Group, anything you want to leave our listeners with?
Certainly do. Look, as we look at ourselves, and the challenge I have for each and every one of us is find those places in our lives that suck our energy clean, right? I'm working on one right now where every time that topic comes up or anything I have to work around it's an energy draw, right? You can just feel, you're like, I don't want to do that. Right. And start to look at that and start now. Not oftentimes I'm stuck in some respect of a commitment or something I have. It might take me a little bit to get out of something, but what just really start to work on is a path or vision for something else to replace that. Right. And that's what we talk about on Future Factory. We talk a lot about how the incentives and motivations and the ideas, and really start to look at how do we create a future that's dynamic and amazing, not one from fear, like I should have this or I should have done that, but more one of, I'm going to create this, something that's passionate, really something I stand in, right? A place that's of opportunity that pulls me forward, right? A life that wakes me up out of bed, pulls me into my day in some sort of excitement, right? So that for me is really what the want is, to help us really create these opportunities for our lives that will pull us forward in really beautiful ways with those beautiful ideas. Because what I know about each and every one of us is that we all have magic in us. And when you don't feel that magic, we need to look at that, let go of the fear, the shame, the guilt. If we let go of those things, what we get to have and connect to is pretty damn magical. And every human being I've ever met is kind of on that same path, right? They're on that same path trying to grow a better life for them and their others and their families. So, that's what I love about the human experience.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place to end, to magic. So, Anthony, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you being on Business Ninjas, talking about, AI, professional growth, personal growth. I think this was a great conversation, and I really appreciate you being on the show.
I love your show. If people aren't listening, I love your show. It's amazing. Thank you for having me on here.
Appreciate it, Anthony. Thank you.